Hey there, Tracy here with another video for you today. In today's video, we'll be making this adorable little mini slimline for Trinity stamps. Here we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be using the Holiday Gnome Stacks stamp and coordinating die set. So I keep mine in a baggie because they're too heavy with magnets. I can't lift the box anymore. And then I've got these little mini slimline flat shaker covers from Trinity. Okay, so I'm going to start with a piece of alcohol marker friendly paper, and I'm going to go ahead and get my gnome stamped out first so that the ink has a chance to dry while I'm making our background. And I'm going to choose kind of the little, I don't know, I call them woodland because the little girl has the little deer antler costume on, and I have a surprise for you for her, so you'll see. And then I'm going to use some alcohol marker friendly ink and just ink that down, and I'll probably ink it a couple of times because I like mine nice and dark and I don't like any lines missed. If you do miss lines, you can fill them in with like your micro pen marker, but I'll just make sure that I've got everything stamped down here. And I don't know why I hold on to my ink pad when I do that. It's just what I do. I could put it down, but I'm always worried that I'll set my hand in it. So that's stamped out and it's drying, and we're going to let that dry. And we're going to go ahead and create our background here now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using some Bristol Smooth paper, and it's going to be longer and a little bit wider than what I need. I will be trimming it down. So it's already 6 inches long, and that's how long I want it. And I'm going to cut it down to 3 3/4. The actual size of the mini slimline shaker cover is 5 3/4 by 2 3/4, and I will trim that later. So I'll be using some Simon Hurley inks, Remember Me and Fake Plant, just 2 inks, and a couple of specialty tools. And this is just kind of like a hard bristled brush, and we're going to create a look that typically you don't want in your picture when you're stenciling or creating art. But what I'm trying to do here is create lines so that my trees look like trees instead of just blobs of green. So I'm just using the very short end of that, and these little things, they have a little telescoping whatever where the brush comes in and out, and I want it close so that I have a tight it's hard to explain, a tight fit on the brush so that I get those brush stroke marks that I'm looking for. And I hope you can see what I'm talking about, where the brush strokes are a little bit darker when I start out, and then they kind of blend back because, you know, obviously the brush runs out of ink, and there you can see what's happened there. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill this in, and I already know that I'm going to be trimming it down. So we're making a very, very subtle background. Going to make my tree a little bit bigger so that it's tree shaped, or, you know, fantasy tree shaped. And just kind of curving around and brushing that out. Then I'll do one on the other side. Same exact thing, only the opposite direction. And I start at the bottom so I get the width that I want, and then I just kind of graduate down when I get towards the top, so that I've got a tree shape. And we're just looking for shapes. We're not trying to make perfect trees in the background. They're not the star of the show here today. The gnomes are. So, but we still want something in the background. I do anyway. And you can go as dark and light, or as light as you like, and use as many colors as you like. The brush, you know, pretty much runs out of ink pretty quickly, so you do have to tap it a lot. Let me just get the bottom of that tree. And there we've got our trees going. Now I need some ground. And so I live in Alabama. We don't get snow. But once in a while we do, and once in a while it sticks. But it's really, really rare. Maybe once, at the best, 3 times a year. That'd be really cool. And sometimes we get it that sticks, but it's super rare. So we're going to put our gnomes in an Alabama forest. Okay, so you can see that that's not perfect, and I'm okay with that. Now I'm going to take my Trinity brush here, my Blending Buddy, and my Remember Me ink, and I'm going to fill in my sky. And again, the sky doesn't have to be perfect. So that's the beauty of this little trick, is it doesn't have to be perfect because it's a sky and they're just not perfect, and especially a snowing sky. So I'll just fill this in, and I don't mind if some of the blue ink blends in with my green. It's still going to be fantastic. That's set. That's done. We're finished with that, except for we need to create our snow. And so what I like to do is put my tools away here. Let's make sure. Okay, now I'm going to grab some white ink. Use your favorite white ink. It doesn't matter which. And again, I'm going to pull this very tight. And I'm just going to dab the white ink on as if the snow is starting to stick. Not going to be a bunch, but I do want it dabbled on so that I still kind of get those brush marks. Again, something you're not typically looking for when you're blending ink, but in this case, it's exactly what I want. You could use, I know they even have like little stencil brushes from the dollar store. You just have to hold your hand at the end of the brush to make sure that all the bristles are nice and tight together. And I'll dab a little bit along the trees as if the snow's starting to stick to the trees. And it's kind of misty and, you know, all the things that happen with magical snow. And those of you that live in climates that get snow all winter, I'm sorry. It's probably not that magical for you. I don't know. It is for me, though. Yeah, listen, I'm a California native, so yeah, same thing. All right, this is ready to go, but let's go ahead and get our snow going here. I'm just going to use a little bit of alcohol to kind of clean up my mess here so that I don't get a bunch of green ink everywhere because I can't see it on my black mat. And what I have here is I have Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, and it's watered down quite a bit. So it had pretty much dried in the pot, and I just added water and shook it to smithereens until I was able to get all that paint melted down. And so it's already watered down for me, so all I have to do is dip my brush in, which is very, very handy. So I'm going to use a little fan brush. I'm just going to lightly tap on some snow. I don't need it to be, I'm trying to avoid big blobs. Sometimes you can't. And look at silly me putting my hand there as if that's going to protect anything. But what I'm trying to protect is what's off camera, which is my little gnomes that I still need to color. Okay, that's good. We'll set that off to dry, and I'll clean up my mess and be back, and we'll color up our gnomes. All right, so we're doing speed coloring here, and I am using Ohuhu markers. So, and I'm not using 3 colors in most cases. In some cases I do. I'm just basically using 2 colors. And I'm going to color the top guy in reds. And then I'm going to color her hair, and I want her to have black hair, but black hair is rarely black. At least when I'm coloring it. So I go in with some sort of blue grays and just sort of, fill in lines and things and go darker where it needs to be darker. And then I'm good with her hair. I'm going to paint her little outfit or color her little outfit pink. And I'm just using 2 shades of pink and just kind of blending those out. I don't need any massive perfect coloring on this thing, but I do want it, to look nice. So I'm going to go ahead and do her little ears and her gloves and shoes or slippers. I think they're slippers. I don't know. You tell me. But because the little foot pad on the bottom, that's what they remind me of, is little slippers, little fancy slippers. color little feet pads and get my little bell handle colored in. Then little guy on the bottom, he's going to be turquoise. There's this little hat, and I accidentally got some on the belt, but it's no big deal. I'll be able to kind of wash that out with my gray. I'm just adding shadows where I think shadows should be. And I don't always get it right, and that's okay. It's a handmade card. Color in her little antlers, and now I'm coming in with a bunch of grays, so I'll start with my lightest gray, and I'll work out that belt and work out those shoes. Let me zoom out here a little bit because I feel like I had covered a lot of my coloring there, trying to keep it in camera. So lots of filling in, lots of different shades of gray from light to dark is how I'm going. And I use my colorless blender there. And what you don't see is that it looks wet when you put it on. It looks darker than it actually is. You have to give it a chance to dry. So we'll go ahead and get him, and he's going to have also gray gloves and shoes. I'm just filling in again, dark where I think it should be dark, light where it should be light. And then coming back in and just kind of blending those grays out. And then I've got my little 00 marker and then my colorless blender. Just kind of fill in the little beard. And then I'm going to do the skin. I'm going to put a little bit of pink, but look what happens to her nose. If she thinks she's going to be a reindeer, by golly, she's going to be Rudolph. So we gave her a Rudolph nose. Then I'm going to use my my white pencil to just kind of add a little bit of highlights, and then my white gel pen to add bigger, more bold highlights. Just add a little bit of light in her hair, a little bit of just light here and there, and I'm making squiggly lines mostly. So that's all colored, and I have cut and colored the Happy Holidays, so we're ready to put our card together. Now I'll trim this base down to 2 3/4 by 5 3/4 so that it fits in the little mini Slimline kind of packet. I'm going to pull the packet out, and I'm going to use some red line tape. Could you use other tape? Yeah, absolutely. This is just what I use. The only thing I don't love about red line tape is you have to use scissors on it, and oh my gosh, that's just one extra step, but hey, it's okay. And I'm just trimming off the excess here and putting it around all sides. Okay, that's down, and that's really sped up because I'm kind of slow at that. And I burnish that down nice and tight. And then I like to hold my paper down before I stick the sides down, just to make sure it's all nice and even. And I went ahead and burnished the rest of the sides down so that they fold easier for me. And then I will do 3 sides here. And just make sure that my card is sitting flat inside of there. And then I have these little flakes that I picked up a big old bag of them from Joann some time ago. They kind of remind me of little soap flakes, but you could use what you have. I'm using what I have, and then I'm using some of these little itty-bitty white pearls from Trinity. And there I've got my shaker element. Then I'm going to pull off the little plastic protective sheet. Doesn't that look pretty? I love it. And so that subtle background's exactly what we needed. Now I'm going to lay this down onto a kind of a mint green card base. And that's just a 6x6 piece of paper folded in half. And I'll also use tape for this just to make sure that it sticks down nicely. I'm going to pull up some of these corners here. And I'm going to pull off the center pieces. Then I'll flip it over and I'll lay the top down where I see 3 even sides, and then I'll lay it down so those middle pieces stick and pull the rest of the tape backers off. And there, that is stuck to the card nicely now. Now all we need to do is lay down our little gnomes and our sentiment. And it'll be fairly simple. I will use some tape on the gnomes as well, just so that I don't have to mess with glue so it sticks right away. Because what happens to me is I don't notice that something slid or I moved it or something like that. The glue dries and I'm stuck with glue spots. So using tape on the actual focal point allows it to stick down immediately. And I use my tweezers to pull those off because there's no way I can pinch my fingers that small. I'll place these right where I want them, which is partway in the grass with the trees going on behind them and the sky. And then I'll pop up the Happy Holidays. And I'm going to pop that on some very low profile foam tape. I want to say the one I grabbed is the 2mm. And I've got strips of it, so I'll pull off a strip. I'm just trying to find it here. There it is. Pull off a strip, lay it down on there, and then just trim it off, and I'll put the rest of the strip right back onto the backer sheet that they all live on. There's no guarantee that I did that I'll be able to find it later, but you know, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. And I will not be adding any extra embellishments to this. I like it just the way it is. So we'll go ahead and pull that backer off. And I'm going to just stick that straight down. And if I don't get it straight, lucky me, I didn't use tape or glue, so I don't have any glue spots. I'll get that straight on there and then just give it a good push down, and this card is done. We've got our mini Slimline shaker card with the gnome, stacked gnomes. So just to recap, we used the holiday gnome stacks and their coordinating die and a mini Slimline card. I hope you like this video. If you do, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Thanks so much for watching. Have an awesome day. Take care. Bye-bye.